guys, and welcome to all the new subscribers. I'm so sorry I haven't made any videos really in the last couple of months, or really barely any in the last 12 months. The last few videos I made, I kept sort of saying there's something big happening, it's chewing up all my time and I can't really talk about it right now. And I got sick of saying that. So that, and I, just got smashed by what was happening. But I can tell you now, so I sold my practice in Sydney and I've moved away from Sydney and I've pretty much walked away from everything. So that's why I wasn't really making more videos, because I was arguing with landlords, dealing with lawyers, arguing with lawyers, signing contracts, walking away from a business, packing up my house. And obviously before that there was also a very unwell dog for a little while, and then we had COVID and multiple lockdowns in Sydney, and just as a small business owner I just didn't have any energy left to make any YouTube videos. So apologies for the lack of videos, but hopefully you can understand. As you can see, we are in a new location. I haven't actually decided if this is where I'm going to film my videos, but it does have very good natural light. As you can see, I'm quite a distance from the window in my office. So given that I haven't really had a lot of time or energy to dedicate to writing, what I thought I would do is take you through the books that I've read over the last couple of months and the ones that I'm working on now, so that you can kind of see where I'm at and catch up on what's been happening, and hopefully you like this video. So I just went to my bookshelf and it turns out I really didn't finish much, or they must have been library books, because there was only one on my shelf that I finished in the last 3 months. But I know I did finish more than that. It's The Happiest Man on Earth by Eddie Jaku, and I just bought this book because, as I have already outlined, I was in a bit of a dark and twisty place, and I thought, gee, I could take some advice from the happiest man on earth. And I love this book, and I love Eddie. It's a quick read, so I think it took me 3 hours from memory. It's quite a while since I read this book, but I mean that doesn't really say anything about the quality of the book, but it is a little skinny one. It's basically an outline of his time as a Jewish man in Nazi Germany and the horrendous experiences that he had, but he doesn't spend a lot of time dwelling on the darkness and the just awful things that happened to him. What he does is kind of use these stories to weave through and explain the lessons of his life, and how sometimes small insignificant things can actually be really important moments and really vital moments. So there was one in here where he was basically talking about the importance of kindness and friendship, and I won't give the example, but the actual event that he was talking about was very insignificant, but it led to his life being preserved. So I think it's really kind of interesting to see someone look back at experiences as horrific as that and come away with such a positive mindset, because there's really no alternative. You either do that or you just get lost in the darkness. And I think it's just a really interesting story to kind of like shift your perspective and come back to a place where you realize that not everything has to be bright and shiny and big and Instagram friendly, and you can have these beautiful, small, meaningful moments, and they all accumulate to a much better and more positive experience with your life. So, like this book, recommend. Recently, I finished Lauren Wilkinson's American Spy. I read this book because Obama recommended it. It was on Obama's summer reads list or something to that effect. And I thought, spy stories aren't usually my jam, but if there is one person who knows a good spy story when they read it or see it, it should be the president of the United States who hangs out with the CIA and FBI and all those people. I didn't really like it. I didn't mind it, but I didn't really like it. I was kind of hoping for greatness, and it didn't really happen. It kind of starts out with an interesting premise that could go to some great places, and it's got this really great diverse cast, and you get a lot of their backstory and a lot of kind of background on what it was like to grow up in the area of America that the main character grew up in. But I don't really get why it was a spy thriller. I just don't get it, because then I feel like I'm kind of amped up for a particular type of story, and it wasn't that. But I don't want to be harsh, because it was well written and there was nothing wrong with it. But it just didn't feel like a spy thriller. It felt like more of a story about a woman who joined a spy service. I feel like it might have been CIA, but I can't remember now. Anyway, and she joins the service, and she just kind of thinks she's ahead of the game all the time, but actually she's not, and other people are manipulating her into these situations, and she kind of gets out of them by the skin of her teeth. But you never really get the situations. It's more a love story-ish. I don't know. Look, I was confused. I expected more from an Obama recommended book. I'm just going to say that. Then I listened to Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights, because he has a beautiful voice, and I thought if he's made an audiobook, then I would be a fool to not listen to him read it. And that's kind of been a thing I've been doing a lot lately. I've been listening to a lot of biographies, and ideally prefer them read by the author, because I just think that you get something out of it that you don't get from reading it. So, for example, JVN's Over the Top, bloody loved that book. And half of the reason I loved it is because he's reading it and making the story animated, and I just don't think I would have felt the same way if I'd read it. I just think I'd be like, what? But loved him, loved his storytelling, loved his voice, loved it. And the other one was Miranda Hart. What was her book called? I don't remember, but it was great. And again, needed to be read by her, because if you've ever watched the TV show of Miranda, which you should watch, there are some things that just need to be said in the Miranda voice, you know, like, such fun. And so I guess I was just kind of putting Matthew McConaughey in that same basket, like, come on, this is the all right guy. Like, he has to narrate his own story. And it's perfect. You have to listen to it rather than read it. It's fantastic. It's just one of those books that really needs someone to read it. His experience, and I don't feel like this is a spoiler because he's talked about a lot of the stories that are actually in this book. Like, I'm kind of surprised by how much detail he's discussed them in interviews, because I'm sort of then like, what's the point of reading the book? But anyway, but there's this story about when he comes to Australia for a year and lives with the Dooleys, and I was just on the floor. And I kind of wonder also what happened to the Dooleys' older son, who was on exchange with Matthew's family back in America. He must have gone back to Australia kicking and screaming if like even half of that experience was true. But I mean, just a crack up. And he does like a not bad Australian accent as well, which does seem to challenge everyone. So it wasn't insufferable, I'll say that. The other thing I really liked about Matthew's story is how he kind of follows his life and finds his next adventure by chasing his dreams, literally, and how he interprets that and then goes on an adventure and then life unravels, which is just interesting because I've always followed my vibes, and so it was just kind of interesting to see how intuition speaks differently to some people. But liked this book, really recommend it. What was next? Oh, there was The Meaning of Mariah Carey, which I can't remember if I made a video on or not, but I saw somewhere for that one on a review, I think it was on Goodreads, that someone had said the book needs to be consumed in small doses because there's only so long one can spend in the presence of a diva. Facts. I feel like then I'm going back too far because there was The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Maxey. 2 thumbs up. And there was I Give My Marriage a Year by Holly Wainwright, which I'm going to do a video of its own. I struggled with this book. I wanted to like this book. My married friends like this book. But there were parts of this book that I really liked that were a complex look into the relationship of people who've been together for a long time and how sometimes you, let's call it, compromise to make somebody else happy and you end up making yourself miserable and you resent them. But there was an awful lot of this book where I felt like the main character was your typical whinging, nagging wife, while the husband was kind of the cool musician dude who was fun with the kids. And I just feel like that kind of went on for a bit long. But yeah, I mean, there were parts of this book that were great, but there were parts I just did not like. But like I said, my married friends really loved it. So maybe you have to be married for this book? So I don't know. Anyway, I'll do a full review for that one. I am still working on A Little Life. I'm mostly listening to this on audiobook. And I think, where am I up to? The Happy Years. I feel like that's a lie. Yeah, I don't know where I'm up to. It's really hard to talk about this book without giving it away. But I mean, I've meant to make little update videos with this along the way, and I have battled because I've been moving house and packing up my business and everything. But this book's trying to kill me. So I like it. It's well written. It's a beautiful story, and I'm deeply in love with the characters. That being said, stop torturing them. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about that, because there was a time where I was like ready to join Harold's crusade against Caleb and go get him because of the way he treated Jude. And I always found that Willem's point of view provided a respite from Jude's unfolding story, which all the bad things happened to Jude. And Willem's story is respite no more. So, okay, I can just see where this is going, and I've been able to see where this is going for a long time. But I still want to go there. But sometimes I find this book so graphic, and that kind of continues on and on for so long that I need a break. And so part of the reason why this book is taking me forever is because the more they hurt Jude, the more I need to take a break. And the breaks between me picking up the book or starting to listen to the audiobook again, the breaks are getting longer. Not because I'm not enjoying the story is so the wrong phrase, but it's not because it's not a well-written book, and it's not because it's just so bloody painful. And I think I've just been going through too much stuff to kind of like want to fall into the deep, deep, dark recesses of somebody else's pain, because that is ferocious and justified and horrible. And dear God, you will, if your heart doesn't break reading this book, there is something wrong. I feel like I'm like 3/4 through, but far out. I've also slowly been working on Murakami's Norwegian Wood. I want to say 7 chapters in, and so far it hasn't really got any claws into me, but I'm still going to finish it. But I yeah, I'm yet to see what all the fuss is about so far, but no complaints beyond that. But again, slow progress due to life insanity. Stan Grant's Australia Day I started reading before Australia Day because why not? But that's kind of when life got really bonkers. So I finished work on the 30th of January and then packed up and was in Jervis Bay 2 weeks later. So I don't know, but anyway, I just haven't had a chance to pick up anything. I literally finished unpacking my house yesterday, and I got a little way in, but yeah, really profound so far. Very, very interesting to read, and I think very important for all Australians to read. I've got a couple of books on my TBR that are either written by Indigenous authors or are kind of more factual, which should be very interesting and enlightening, which is the goal. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of confronting, and there are a number of things he said that I was like, damn, yeah, whoa. And I feel like for books like that, I prefer them in physical format because then you can kind of sit there and kind of refer back to it and reread it and just be like, whereas in the audiobook, it's almost impossible to really find the phrase that you're looking for. But anyway, I intend to pick this book back up imminently. I also read James Nestor's Breath, which very interesting, especially coming from the perspective of a physiotherapist who does cranial work, and as a person who has every breathing problem under the sun, a high palate, huge orthodontic problems, made a lot of sense. So definitely we should all be reading that and doing some breath work. But what am I currently listening to other than A Little Life, which is trying to kill me? I went back and found the audiobook for Love Struck by Melanie Labouri because I read that book years ago and I was trying to find it in amongst all my stuff, and I think I must have chucked it out or lost it in amongst all the moves. But I loved that book when I first read it, and that made me a Melanie Labouri hardcore fan, and I've read all of her books, but none were as good as that. And I started listening to it again, and not as funny on an audiobook, but it was very, very funny. Oh, and I went back, I had a Silver Brumby by Elaine Mitchell moment, so I've still got an hour of that to go because what happened that made me have nostalgia for my youth? Something. I used to bloody love that movie with Russell Crowe, good old Rusty, and you know, I wanted to have a horse farm, even though I'm not great with horses, and yeah, Silver Brumby was where it's at when I was a kid. So I watched the movie and started listening to the book, and I had all the books as a kid. I just never read them because I was too young, I was dyslexic, and I used to just read the same page over and over again and get nothing from it. And that's been the kind of interesting thing about writing more and editing more, is I've kind of got, sounds so ridiculous, but better at reading because of the editing process and like scanning through and looking for things. So I feel like I can absorb way more from books in the last couple of years than I have been able to decades before. But yeah, I was never a big reader before, and then as I was listening to the audiobooks, I know why, because they're sort of talking about the landscape and the birds and as just as a little kid, I just would have been like, and I'm gone. So yeah, but as an adult, not too bad. Love the movie still. And that appears to be about it. So I don't think I'm reading or listening to anything else. I think that's quite enough. So hopefully at some point in the future, I will actually finish those books and be able to let you know what I thought. But thank you for watching this video. I hope you subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to press like so this channel can grow, and I will see you soon.